What if I told you that the most common disorder affecting your body's primary filter could be progressing inside you right now, completely silently, for years, before you ever noticed a single symptom?
Welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. Stay informed with quick, easy-to-listen summaries of our latest articles, perfect for when you're on the go. No reading required. Subscribe for free at mercola.com for the latest health insights.
Hello and welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. Today we are turning our attention to a really crucial topic, one that touches on metabolic health, these hidden processes in our bodies, and a very specific nutrient connection.
It's good to be here. This is one of those topics that, it really highlights why we need to look closer at what's happening on a cellular level.
Yeah, absolutely.
We aren't just talking about like a stomach ache or feeling a bit tired. We're talking about the underlying mechanics of how your body processes energy.
And the silent toll it takes when that processing goes wrong.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to unpack the story here. We want to understand just how widespread fatty liver disease actually is and, identify the key drivers. Things like insulin resistance. And really look at that connection to niacin that's hinted at. We're analyzing a report by Dr. Joseph Mercola, and honestly, there's a lot more here than meets the eye. It's not just a medical report, it's almost a detective story about our own biology.
Oh, there certainly is. It's a concise report, but the implications of the points raised are just massive. It really forces us to rethink how we define healthy.
And it challenges that assumption, right? That if you aren't in pain, you must be fine.
Exactly that assumption.
So let's start with the scale of the issue. When I read the first major takeaway from the report, I had to double check it.
I'm not surprised.
We usually hear about heart health or maybe blood pressure as the big common topics. We don't usually sit around the dinner table talking about our livers.
Right. It's not exactly polite dinner conversation, but what stands out here is the phrasing. The report states unequivocally that fatty liver disease is the most common liver disorder.
Okay, let's unpack this. The most common, not a common disorder, the most common.
The most common. We aren't talking about some rare genetic condition that affects 1 in a million people.
No.
And, 50 years ago, if you mentioned liver disease, everyone just assumed you were talking about alcohol.
Sure, you thought of the heavy drinker, cirrhosis, that kind of thing.
That was the stereotype. But this report is highlighting a fundamental shift. The dominant form of liver disease today isn't necessarily coming from a bottle. It's coming from our metabolism.
That's a huge distinction.
Yep.
So you could be someone who never touches alcohol, and you're still in the risk category for the #1 liver disorder.
Absolutely. And that ubiquity is why this deep dive is so essential. Because it's the most common, it's statistically relevant to a huge portion of the people listening right now.
It shifts the conversation from this might happen to someone else to this is something I need to understand for myself.
It does. It's happening in the general population, across all age groups, and it's tracking right alongside our modern lifestyle.
It feels like the liver is often the forgotten organ until it fails. We worry about our heart beating because we can feel it.
Of course.
We worry about our lungs breathing. But the liver just sits there doing its job.
It's the unsung hero. It's the chemical processing plant of the body. Everything you eat, everything you're exposed to, it all goes through the liver.
And what this is telling us is that for a vast number of people, that processing plant is getting clogged.
Clogged is a good word for it. It implies a backup.
So if it's this common, we have to ask the obvious question. What's driving it? What's fueling this if it isn't just alcohol?
The report is very specific here, and this is where we see the metabolic roots of the problem. It lists 3 specific drivers: obesity, type 2 diabetes, and insulin resistance.
Okay, so a triad. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. I feel like we see those 3 grouped together constantly.
We do, but it's important to understand why they're grouped together. They aren't isolated events. They are deeply interconnected. In fact, you could argue they are just different manifestations of the same underlying metabolic dysfunction.
It's like they're different faces of the same villain.
That's a fair assessment. It suggests that fatty liver disease isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's a downstream effect. The liver is the victim of the metabolic environment.
Let me try an analogy here. I'm trying to visualize this. Imagine your liver is a high-tech distribution center, like an Amazon warehouse.
Okay, I like where this is going.
And trucks are coming in constantly with packages. That's the energy, the food we eat.
Mm-hmm.
So obesity, diabetes, and insulin resistance.
Oh.
These are like supply chain disruptions. The trucks keep arriving, but the workers inside are on strike. That's the resistance.
I see.
So the packages just pile up in the aisles on the loading dock. Eventually, the warehouse isn't a warehouse anymore. It's just a storage unit for junk.
That is a surprisingly accurate analogy. The junk, in this case, is fat. When the liver can't process the energy coming in because the machinery is broken, it has no choice but to store it, right there, inside its own cells.
And a warehouse filled with junk can't operate.
Exactly. The forklifts can't move. In the liver, this means the cells become engorged with fat droplets, and this compromises their ability to do all those other jobs, filtering, regulating blood sugar. It's a functional collapse caused by overcrowding.
I want to zoom in on that third driver, insulin resistance, because I think a lot of people hear that term and their eyes just glaze over.
It sounds technical, I get it.
Yeah, we know it's bad. But what is it actually doing to the liver?
This is the core of the cellular wisdom here. Insulin is a hormone, a signal. Its job is to knock on the door of your cells and say, hey, open up, I have energy for you.
It's a delivery driver ringing the doorbell.
Exactly. In a healthy body, the cell hears the doorbell, opens up, and takes the energy. Simple. But in insulin resistance, the cell has stopped listening. The doorbell's been rung too many times.
So the doorbell is ringing, insulin is high, but the door stays shut.
Precisely. So the pancreas sees the door isn't opening, and it screams louder. It produces even more insulin. Now you have high insulin and high energy in the blood with nowhere to go.
But where does it go?
The liver. The liver becomes the dumping ground. It's not just about weight. It's about this mechanism failing. The key doesn't turn the lock anymore.
So the liver's kind of taking one for the team.
Initially, yes, it's a protective mechanism. But over time, that protection becomes the disease itself.
And this explains why you don't necessarily have to be massively overweight to have this, right?
Exactly. It's why you can have lean people with fatty liver. We often call it 2FI thin outside, fat inside.
Wow.
They might not look obese, but if they have insulin resistance on the inside, their liver is suffering the same fate. The warehouse is full, even if the building looks small from the street.
That is a terrifying thought. You can't just look in the mirror to know.
No, you can't. And that leads us to the next point, which I think is arguably the most dangerous aspect of this whole thing.
You're talking about the symptoms.
Oh.
Or the lack of them.
Yes. The report says it often progresses silently for years before symptoms appear.
Silently for years. Let that sink in.
It's a chilling phrase, isn't it?
It is. Usually if I injure myself, I know immediately. My body tells me, hey, slow down. Something is wrong.
Right. We are biologically conditioned to react to pain. Pain is our alarm system. But the liver, it's unique.
It doesn't scream when it's hurt?
The liver itself has very few nerve endings, so it can take a massive amount of abuse without sending a pain signal to your brain.
So relying on feeling good is basically a trap.
In this context, yes. Feeling good is not an accurate metric of liver health. The silence is the danger. By the time symptoms do appear, like jaundice, extreme fatigue, the damage has already been happening for years, maybe even decades.
So you could be walking around, going to work, feeling totally normal, all while this is advancing in the background.
That's the reality. The structural damage is compounding day after day, meal after meal, while you feel absolutely nothing.
This is why understanding those drivers we just discussed is so critical then.
It is. Because we can't wait for symptoms. We have to look at the risk factors. We have to be detectives of our own metabolism.
So if you have the drivers,
If you have the drivers, the insulin resistance, the belly fat, the blood sugar issues, you have to assume the silent progression might be happening.
the drivers are the early warning system, not the pain.
Precisely. It turns the focus from symptom management to root cause awareness. You don't wait for the engine to explode. You look at the check engine light. Insulin resistance is the check engine light.
That's a crucial shift in mindset. It moves us from being passive patients to proactive managers of our own health,
And that proactive management requires tools. It requires knowledge.
which is the perfect transition to the other half of our topic today. We've covered the doom and gloom of it all, but I want to pivot.
Yeah.
The title of this deep dive is Exploring the Link Between Niacin and Fatty Liver Disease.
Yes. And for many listeners, that might seem like a bit of a curveball.
It does. We've talked about the disease, the drivers like diabetes and obesity. Those make sense. But then the title specifically calls out niacin.
It does. And the fact that we're even exploring this link tells us something important about how we should view the disease.
What does it tell us?
It tells us that there's a critical relationship to investigate between this specific nutrient and this condition. It suggests the solution, or at least a piece of the puzzle, might be found in micronutrients.
Let's clarify for the listener. Niacin, what are we talking about here?
Niacin is vitamin B3. It's an essential vitamin, but biologically, it's a powerhouse. It's not just about, skin health, it's about energy.
That's interesting because we usually think about macronutrients, fats, carbs, sugars, when we talk about fatty liver.
Correct. But vitamin B3 is a precursor to something called NAD+. And without getting too bogged down in the biochemistry, NAD+ is absolutely crucial for your cells to burn fuel.
Okay, I'm seeing the connection.
Yeah.
We just established that fatty liver is a problem of unburned fuel piling up in the warehouse.
Exactly. So if the liver is a factory that's clogged up, niacin plays a role in the machinery that actually burns that fuel. Exploring this link suggests that these biochemical pathways might be relevant to how the liver is functioning or malfunctioning.
So it's not just about eat less, move more. It's about how does this specific nutrient interact with this specific organ?
That's the essence of looking deeper. It adds another layer of complexity and potentially opportunity to our understanding. It raises the question, is part of the reason the warehouse is clogged because the workers, the enzymes driven by niacin, aren't showing up?
That's a fascinating way to look at it. We have the villains of the story, obesity, insulin resistance, but then we have this other character, niacin, that has a link we need to understand.
And identifying that link is the first step. It moves us beyond just weight loss as a vague goal and gets us thinking about nutrient sufficiency.
It really emphasizes the value of looking at these specific biological connections.
And that is cellular wisdom. The body isn't just a bucket of calories, it's a complex chemical reaction. If you're missing a reagent, like niacin, the reaction can stop or go wrong.
And in this case, goes wrong means fat piling up in the liver.
Precisely.
So we have covered a lot of ground here. The scale, the drivers, the silence, and now this niacin connection. So what does this all mean for the listener trying to make sense of it all?
I think if we synthesize the key takeaways, it breaks down like this. First, we have to accept the prevalence. Fatty liver is the #1 liver disorder. It is not an outlier.
Right. It's everywhere.
Second, we know the fuel. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, it's a metabolic issue at its core. It's a whole body energy problem.
The triad of drivers.
Third, and maybe most importantly, it is a silent operator. It works for years without a sign. You cannot wait for pain to act.
The silence is the trap. It lulls you into a false sense of security.
And finally, there's a significant link to explore with niacin. We can't ignore the nutritional aspect here. It opens a door to thinking about nutrition as a tool for actual organ support.
That's a solid summary. It paints a picture of a condition that requires proactive thinking. You have to be driving the car.
Absolutely. I think the biggest takeaway from all this is that silence does not equal health. We need to be aware of the metabolic context of our bodies.
It's a wake-up call to look under the hood, even if the car seems to be running fine.
That's the perfect way to view it. And investigating links like niacin gives us hope that there are mechanisms we can support. It's not hopeless, it's biology. And if we understand the biology, we can change the outcome.
As we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a final thought. We spend so much of our lives waiting for our bodies to tell us something is wrong. But if this disease, the most common liver disease in the world, is silent for years and is driven by these common metabolic issues, how differently should we view our daily health beyond just waiting for symptoms? It really makes you think about what prevention actually looks like.
It certainly does. It changes the definition of health entirely. It's not the absence of disease, it's the presence of optimal function, and that requires cellular wisdom.
Thank you for listening to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. See you in the next episode. Looking for trusted health wisdom you can hold in your hands? Discover the life-changing books of Dr. Mercola at joyhousepublishing.com. These titles bring decades of natural health research into practical steps for better energy, stronger immunity, and clearer thinking. Take charge of your health with guidance rooted in science and experience. Visit joyhousepublishing.com now and claim your bonuses while they are available.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe now and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.